Hello everyone, my name is Claude9 and I'm here with the CLDL to give power rankings for the Detective Little Cup division that we have going on this year. So I'll be going in order of my personal opinion from bottom to top, no actual numbers, just thoughts and opinions. Yes, so with that, let's get started. Starting off at the very bottom is myself. I am notoriously bad at drafting, and I think my team speaks for itself. It is, just look at it. That's a team. It's bad. Flame me in the comments. Great. Alright, now let's look at the teams I actually looked at and put some time and effort into ranking. Starting off with Grebo. Now, let me preface by saying none of these teams are by any means bad. There are just some teams I see more weaknesses in than others, and this is one that I found a bunch of weaknesses with. One, the triple water core is odd. It just makes your team very prone to electric and grass, which are very popular types. Granted, you do cover it up very well with, the Pharisee and the Honedge, and you have a double steel core, which is kind of cool. But it's just a lot of water for me, personally. Especially when a lot of these are high point mons. That when you look at something like Carvanha, Corphish, even your Honedge, Gible, Nimble, in most Shinx are all physical attackers. It's very physically attacking based. There's not a lot of special attackers. If you look at just the stats, your best special attacker is Carvanha, and that never feels good. The other big thing I wanted to point out, well, you do have all three hazards, which is really, really nice. Your speed for all your mons is very, very low. Carvanha, I believe, at 65 hits a max speed of 17. Granted, it does have the speed boost, but outside of that, Marini and Shinx and Nimble are your fastest mons. I think they hit 15, which is worrisome because it feels like a lot of teams can just underspeed entirely to 15 because Carvanha's gonna be faster anyways after a speed boost and just run a lot more bulk, making it a lot more difficult to fight or to play against opponents. Also, with your only way of removing hazards being Gossifleur and that being Rapid Spin, hazard stack can become a real problem on this team going forward. In my personal opinion, what I would do is I would probably drop the Honedge and the Corphish for some special attackers. Not having a normal type or a psychic type is a little worrisome in my mind, or fighting. Fighting is arguably the best type in Little Cup. The fighting type mons just hit so incredibly hard, and there's not a lot that can take it since recovery is much less here than it is in OU or level 100 formats. So that's my personal what I would recommend going about. Being weak to ground is never fun, and when your only resists are a Nimble that does not have a lot of defense, 40's fine. And Gossifleur can tank Earthquakes. It's just you're forced to have to bring it depending on what they have, and when you're forced to bring something, it just hurts your team overall because then things don't get used and people can learn and play around that. But otherwise, it's a great team. I love the defensive core of Pharisee and Marini. It's very difficult to fight through both of those. You need both fire and ground or electric coverage, so it can become very tough. With that, let's move on to the next one. I have Light Neong. So this is another team that stacked up a couple of types, being water. You have 3 different water types. I understand Clamperl and Magikarp are low points, and that's fine, but there are other low point mons that I think are better, that your points could have been better used towards. That, and when your team is weak to electric, it's never a good sign because there's a lot of electric mons in Little Cup, and that just tells you, oh, I can run this and there's not much they can do about it, especially when your ground type is just Baltoy. It puts a lot of pressure on Baltoy to do very well. And the problem is the team's also very weak to grass. So grass can then come, and Baltoy can't take the grass on it nearly as well as the electric. Weak to ground is bad. I'm gonna say it every single time. The double ghost is interesting, as it really does prevent rapid spin, and you have a bunch of great hazard control with Quaxly, Baltoy, so that works really, really well, and I think it fits very well. Only having Pawniard as knockoff is a little sad, but I mean, it works. There's a bunch of heavy hitters on this team. Pawniard, Scorbunny, Quaxly, Riolu do a whole lot. Even Fungus. So you have a very strong core with that, and then just the mons around it don't seem to support them very well. I would guess the same, like, 6-7 mons are going to come to almost every single match. I don't know a time when they're going to bring Clamperl, Magikarp, even Gimmighoul, and maybe even Nasil, or Knockley, or whatever it is. It just become very difficult to find spaces to bring when you're very top-heavy with, you know, Pawniard, Fungus, and then Riolu. That's just the way draft goes. I don't know, lacking some hazards, not having a... no, there's a ground and poison type, that's fine. Never mind. Relying on rapid spin is fine. I think having a defog is super helpful because there's a lot of ghost types, and if they know, they can block. And then Hazard Sack can also become a thing. So it's just something to watch out for moving forward. Otherwise, it's not bad. Very strong top 6 that can really put a lot of pressure and be aggressive. Once again, they're pretty much all physical. Pawniard to Quaxly's physical. Baltoy is mixed, Fungus is special, and Riolu can be mixed, but it's tough. Yeah. That's where your Ghosts and Clamperl come in, but it's just harder to use them when you have to replace something else that helped hold the team together. With that, I'm going to move on to the next one we have is Stee. So, there are things I like and don't like about this team. And the big thing I don't like is that Pineco is your only removal. And Pineco is fine. Pineco is fine, it's just, it doesn't feel good to have Pineco be your only resist, or only way to remove hazards. And that's gonna be a big thing, is hazards are important. They're bigger in Little Cup than they are in other formats, or, I mean, they're important everywhere, but that's that. The other big thing I noticed is that there is one thing that resists Psychic, and with Psychic types being prevalent and very much around, having something that can deal with Psychic or take the hits, when that is just Magnemite, it hurts the power of Magnemite. There are, once again, a lot of doubled up types here. 2 electric, 2 grass, 2 poison, 2 bug, 2 rock, 2 steel. That's fine. I like, the Varoom isn't a fun pick. I personally wouldn't have Varoom, or I wouldn't have this Paris. And maybe not even the Amora. One, there's no benefit for Amora. There is nothing to complement it. No ice type, no Slush Rush users, no Cubchoo, no Alolan Sandslash that can really, really help and benefit from it. That, and you don't have a fighting type. Fighting types are so incredibly important because they hit very, very hard. You have no dark resist at all. Knockoff is huge in the format, and that becomes free versus your entire team. Not having a Psychic type or any Psychic real resist besides Magnemite does not feel good. And I mean, weak to ground. Weak to ground is weak to ground. I'm gonna say it. Help get rid of some of those weaknesses. Weak to fire isn't good either. Especially when you have the mon that's most weak to fire in Paris. So, it's a lot of that that's just sort of off in my mind. You do have, I mean, Pineco is fine. Trubbish and Pineco kind of fit the same role, except one's similar. So, in my opinion, I would probably drop this Varoom. I would drop this Paris, and I would drop the Amora, and I would grab something that resists Stark, something that resists Psychic, something that can, it's off the ground, that might have Levitate. If you can get something that resists fire as well and help that, great. If I look at like a lot of the high tier mons, it's, you have this Diglett, you have Magnemite. I guess the Amora is kind of up there, and the Phantom is cool, and Munchlax is fine, but it feels like you took, instead of going with some of the better mons, you tried to spread out your points more and get a full 11. and I feel like we can condense some of these things into a couple of mons and get a better overall team. Because it's on a random 6v6 battle, I'm not sure what you're bringing, and half the time I'm not going to be that worried about what it is. If I look through everything again, there's not a lot of special attackers. Your special attacker is Magnemite, and then it was Amora. So, that's that. That's fine. If I look into speed, you have Diglett, which hits a great speed 20, which is only a couple of mons hit that 20. I think it's Diglett, the Voltorb, Elekid. And after that, it drops right down to 65. And Trubbish doesn't want to be running speed half the time, or if it is, it's just running speed. Krabby hits 50. I think 65 is 17, so you're missing that 18, 19, which can be abused because there's a lot of 19-point mons that are very fast and strong. I know I just dropped a Alolan Meowth, so I'd probably pick that up, and that would help your team both speed-wise, give you more momentum, and give you a Dark and Psychic resist, quote-unquote, because frail mons are frail. So, yeah. Okay. Next up, we have is Egotistical Elekid. Now, this is a team I struggled with trying to figure out whether or not I liked it or not, and it's a 9 mon draft. It's a 9 mon, and you can have a great 9 mon build, and I think we'll see one of those later on. But with the mons that you have, there's a couple of things that really, really worry me about this. One, Spritzee is great. Meowth is wonderful. Those are the two, and Drifloon. Those three are like 3 very, very good mons to have in Little Cup. Outside of that, though, it just feels like we're missing a couple of things here. Normal is a very good type because there's not a lot of steals and rocks that can really take on all these hits, so that's fine having that, but being weak to electric never feels good, even with the Hippo. Being weak to ice never feels good. Having no psychic resist at all, and being weak to it, it's a free move. I think of the weeks where you fight an Abra, or literally any other psychic type, it's gonna come, it's gonna click a psychic move, and it can be like choice specs. It can be anything, and you're just not worried about it. Those are just the immediate thoughts I see there. Speed-wise, this is fine. Meowth hits that 19, I think Strudel hits 18, Mankey-Floon can hit 17, and Drifloon can go even higher. Having the webs is really niche and fun. Having only 1 rocker is fine, but you know if Hippo comes, it's probably going to have rocks. There's a good amount of momentum, I guess, through this. Drifloon is the only defogger. It doesn't feel good because you don't want to run defog on it. So it would benefit probably to get another one. Just from looking at this, you have 2 water types and you have 2 normal types. I don't think you need the Strudel and the Totodile. I would probably drop both of those for something that can resist a psychic move. Like, top priority would be getting something that resists the psychic, and then something else that can help, and then an electric. Either I'd probably grab an electric and a psychic type and call it a day, or even more because you can afford to have another mon or 2 in there, and that just overall benefits your draft itself. As far as a mix, like, you have a good split of physical attackers and some special attackers. Drifloon can be mixed special. Spritzee is very strong on the special side. And that's kind of it. Like, I mean, I guess you have Surskit, which is kind of cool, but just spreading things around. There's a lot of potential. There's a lot of good setup on this team, so just something to watch out for. You do have a bunch of only one thing to fighting, which is really nice, so you did cover that, but there are a couple of other things I would address and try and push forward with going forward. Yeah. Alright, up next we have Swampertonto. Alright, and this is where I start getting into teams that I like or don't like or have bits and pieces that I think are really cool. So with this, first thing that pops out to me, besides all these weaknesses here, and some of these are fine, except for this Dark knockoff, I don't like that, is Stealth Rocks. You have 1 rocker and it being Tyrant. Tyrant doesn't want to run Stealth Rocks. Tyrant wants to be Dragon Dance with either an Oranberry or an Eviolite, and then just hitting things very, very hard. Wingull is a great mon. It's very, very fast. Hits that 19 speed tier that you want to hit. for elite speed. And you have the same thing with Wattrel. Doubling up on, or tripling up on flying is a little odd, so we'll get to that, but it works though. Like you have a rocker, you have a spiker. I love Bramblin. I think Bramblin's underrated, but it's fast and it can hit, and it's cool. A lot of the main types you have covered. Psychic's a little worrisome just because most Psychic types get access to Shadow Ball, so Solosis being your only answer is okay. Houndour, I think, is a fun mon that you can play with very, very well. I wish there was a little more hazard support here. To go along with that, you have the birds as your momentum. And the birds are some defog as well, besides Bramblin. Not sold on this Pidove. It could be a meme pick, it could be fun. That and the Slugma, I think, are a little... We're just taken to be taken rather than thoroughly thought out. I would love to see both of these drop because I think they're like 3 and 4 points, or both 4 points, to pick up something that's either 7 or 8 that could fill a gap in here. Whether that's something that can resist ice, because you seem to have a lot of things weak to ice. Granted, getting rid of one of those will help that. That, and then you're very weak to rock right now. Rocks can come in and do a lot to your team. So that's just something that screams like a problem for me. Also with Ghost, Dragon, and Dark, there aren't a lot of dragons in the format, and not having a fairy type or a steel type or something that resists it really lets them set up and go and do what you want to be doing with Tyrant against you. I do love having the Trapinch core there to help, so that we can trap things that are problematic. Trapinch is a very good mon. I do like bits and pieces. I think it needs a little bit of maneuvering around and like switching of things to really make it what it needs to be. Because the top 7 here I think are very good, even Trapinch 8. And I think this back end could easily be fit into something else that could really, really help it. So there's a lot of potential. Up next we have EA Grill, or that's what I'm gonna call him. And I like this team, and I don't like this team, and it's tough. And I like a lot of these teams, and don't like a lot of these teams too, so it's nothing specific on that. First thing is, I don't mind a lot of these weaknesses. Granted, not having a steal and not having a fairy, while they're less important in Little Cup, it's still nice to have them. So you're not just facing blatant holes. But having 2 rockers and 2 good rockers in that factor, it's great to have. Not having other support is unfortunate, and then you have some momentum here with Slowpoke, Pikipek, Larvesta. I love the Sentret, but Sentret. Defog only being Farfetch'd and Pikipek is unfortunate, just because neither of them really want to run Defog on their sets. Most of the time it's either you're gonna, like, Farfetch's Choice Scarfed or something else, and either same with Pikipek. And they don't want to have to run the Defog as a move slot. You can, and it can work. It's just not normal. The same issue we had before is the speed. Pikipek being your fastest mon, I think 65 hits 17 does not feel good. I think. Yeah. It just doesn't feel right, and you want higher. You really want to be hitting 19. You need something at that high speed tier. I think that's what's missing from a team like this. You cover a lot of the types very, very well. You don't need the second normal. I understand Center, you had no points left. But it is what it is. Trying to think of what I would do to improve it, because you do carry a lot of cover, a lot of the types, which is really nice to have. I think, personally, I would probably, I'm not entirely sure what I would drop for something else, but I may not be sold on this Mastiff. So maybe the Mastiff, the Sandygast, and the Sentry are the 3 I'd be like, okay, we might be able to play around and find something else that can help. Because the way I see it is Psychic will run through this team. Anything fast has a really good matchup into this team, and with Farfetch'd and Pikipek forced to defog, Hazards can play and it can chip away the team very easily. These are just little things that I've noticed that I think might be helpful. But yeah, definitely getting a Steel type would be useful, in my opinion. Granted, there's not a lot of them left. I think Clink might be around, but an Electric type I think would also be very beneficial, just to, because a lot of them are very fast. Yeah, that and having no flying resist never feels good. Yeah, I mean, Laleep is a good mon, but maybe that might be something it's worth dropping for a separate Grass and Rock type as their own thing, not together, because they kind of cancel each other out a little bit. But those are my thoughts. Next up is HXR team, and this team is interesting, like in a good way, in my opinion, because you have like the starter trio core with Squirtle, Litten, and Sprigatito, and then you have some really fast mons in Ambipom, Elekid, Friddle can be very, very fast with speed boost. And then it's, alright, here are the ground guys later on, with Sandile, Golett, and then Dwebble. It's like flipping bits and pieces of like specific things, and it's cool to look at. So, what I noticed with this is that you have one spinner being Squirtle, and that's fine, Squirtle can spin. Sometimes Squirtle wants to set up though. It sometimes wants to. And you have a lot of really good momentum. I think over half the team has momentum, which is great. At least the first half. And there's a bunch of rockers, a spiker. There's a lot this team can do. Hazards are not going to be your friend. Fighting is not going to be your friend, even though you have Golett and Friddle. Half the time they're not going to want to come in on a fighting type, just because it's difficult to always take hits. That and having a lot of these single-typed mons does leave things open. Toxic Spikes looks incredibly good versus this team. And I say that because if you have Toxic Spikes, their only way to get rid of it is for Squirtle to come in, get poisoned, and then keep moving on. And while Toxic Spikes is not the biggest thing in Little Cup, it's just something to note that, oh, if they get set up, Squirtle gets poisoned, and will slowly chip away. And if it's offensive, then it can even not take nearly as many hits as it wants to take. So, there is that. Hazards just look very good versus this team in general. Granted, there's setup with Friddle. Elekid and Napalm are momentum kings and can move around and help put you in a more advantageous position. That's why I said I like this team and I don't like this team, and it's interesting. I'm curious to see how things would go. I personally would probably drop the Golett and the Snom for something else, just because they feel redundant to me. That and it might help cover up some of these extra weaknesses that you have, because water looks like it can work very well. Most water also runs ice, so it's like you can see certain problems that can arise and all that. When your only answer to a water type is bringing in Squirtle, it doesn't feel nearly as good. But those are just my thoughts. All right, up next we have Impikari, and this team, I think I like it a lot. And the reason why I like it is that Ponyta, Drillbur, Dewpider, Crabrawler are such fun mons. Those are 4 really, really good mons that have some rocks, give you webs, and just do a whole lot and are hard to take down. I mean, Ponyta hits 19 speed. That's very good. Drillbur, I think, hits 17. I think it's 17, which is a very good number. Dewpider is, I think, arguably one of the best sticky web setters in the tier. Also, being immune to water is huge because this team is weak to water. Granted, I know you want to run Water Bubble, but Water Absorb might just be better since Drillbur's weak to it, Fuecoco is weak to it, Nosepass is weak to it. It works very well in that sense. Being weak to ground is annoying, but as I said, you're putting a lot of pressure on this Dewpider to have to tank to do like double duty for waters and now ground as well, just based on team construction. The Nosepass Tadpole Deerling, they're fine. Deerling is okay. I mean, Deerling's a good mod if done right. I personally would probably flip all of this around and grab some 3 different mons that might be able to benefit you better overall. That and you are a little weak to some of these. Don't have any of these hazards. Not having grounded poison means toxic spikes becomes something that can happen. It's just something that can happen. It doesn't have to happen, but it can. Not having a lot of momentum is what it is. And that Drillbur is your only hazard remover. That worries me because while Drillbur's mostly run Rapid Spin, a ghost type can easily come in and block you, and then now their hazards are up. You'll notice hazard stack, while it's not important, it is important. Like getting rocks up, dealing 2 chip, 2 damage in Little Cup is massive. That's 10% of your health, or 1. Every little bit matters because the counts are so finite and wide. So every little bit you can do to help yourself, the better it will be. So in my opinion, I would probably drop the last 3, maybe 4 if you have to grab something that can help defog a Rapid Spin and help cover up some of this water and ground issues that I'm seeing. But otherwise, Cabrawler is a really, really good mon. Ponytail's really, really strong. Fuecoco, I have not seen a lot of, but I'm sure it can do very well. And then Impidimp Prankster is always very, very annoying. And I do love the Unmasked Mummy because it stops a lot of the technicians or normal types that are around. Alright, up next on the list I have is Harry. And I hate and love this team at the same time. So, Dual Weather is very interesting because it's so incredibly hard to play against because you never know what they're going to do, and there's a whole bunch of setup there. Shelter sets up, Sandshrew can kind of set up, Onyx can set up, Bulbasaur and Execute hacking growth, which is huge. And it's not difficult to get this weather up because they have Snover and Vulpix, which can, just come in and boom, there it is. The team being very weak to fire is a little worrisome, especially in that there's also a lot of good thick fat mons that can help fight the fire ice core that's going on. Being weak to fighting doesn't feel good. Being weak to poison never feels good. Neutral to ground is fine. I like this team from a perspective of, if it's offensive enough, it can just win. Like, it can easily overpower a lot of its weaknesses and push through a team very, very easily, if not prepped for correctly. On the other side, if caught off guard, this could also just shut down another team completely by accident. So, it's interesting. Rapid Spin being Shelter and Sandshrew are fine. Defog with QD Fly is okay. There's at least options there. There's not a lot of momentum, which worries me a little bit. So, because Vulpix and Snover will get in, and then now you have to switch out to something else if you want to keep that up, or you have to fight through it. But I mean, you hit all the big speed tier moments. Pretty sure QD 84 is 19 speed, so that's fun. I think Onyx might even hit 18 with that, which is really, really good. So you have enough speed around the board. You might be a little too fast, with 40 being the highest, so anything very slow doesn't need to worry about it, but most of the time if it's low, it doesn't look for it anyways. I'm very curious to see how this does, because this looks a lot of fun, because Vulpix into Bulbasaur Execute seems incredibly difficult to deal with. Since most of your fire, since most of the resists are, for Bulbasaur, are poison types. Now Execute can fight that. So, I'm curious to see how this all works out. There's a lot of very good mons in this. And I know Harry, and Harry's gonna find a way to make it very, very strong. Okay, up next we have new K-Bomb, and this is a team I greatly enjoy. So, besides the 2 glaring weaknesses being weak to water and weak to fighting, because it's just not fun being weak to those 2 types when they are some of the most important types in Little Cup. Granted, you have the best fighting type being Timber, I think. Timber can do everything. It's bulky, it takes hits, it hits really hard. Mach Punch is incredible. I had it with Coughing in another league, and the two of them do very, very well. I love Coughing. Coughing is another really, really strong mon. Your Defog Rapid Spin scenario was a little weak with it being Timber, Archon, and Bergmite, but half the time you may not even care, because you have, let's see, yeah, you have speed and things. I would be worried about it just because Archon will take a lot from it unless you're running heavy duty boots, but you don't want to have to run that all the time. It's not the best item in Little Cup like it is in OU. Taking 2 points of damage isn't that bad. Granted, when you're taking a fourth, it never feels good. I love the Zorua play. I think Zorua is a fun mon because it can, the illusions are always fun to deal with. With Coughing being above the ground, Toxic Spikes can hit a thing, can provide some issues. Granted, you have Bronzor, you have Coughing, you have Archon. They don't care. Timber has Guts, so it really shouldn't matter. There's a lot of things that work really, really well. There's a lot of good stealth rockers. Yeah, I mean, there's not much more I can say. This team just looks really, really good on paper. So I'm worried about a fighting type or a water type just coming in and just causing a lot of problems for this team, because it seems like there's not a lot of answers. Alright, we're getting into the top 3, in my opinion. Number 3 being Fist. So it's hard to not look at this team and think, wow, how did we allow him to get all these things? And then you look at it some more and you're like, oh, okay. So not having a ground type is sketchy in itself. Just because Volt Switch is now always free. Because it is. But outside of that, that and you're weak to Earthquake. Granted, you do have Grookey, which does help you with that, so that's less of an issue. Stealth Rocks, not having Stealth Rocks on a couple of mons feels kind of bad, because you're not going to always want to bring Kabuto, and you don't have to play the Stealth Rock game. That's perfectly fine. You do have Toxic Spikes with Stunky, and Stunky's a phenomenal mon. Because it also can defog and reliably can defog. Kabuto can rapid spin, and that's fine. And there's a whole bunch of knockoff. I think 5 different mons have knockoff here. I think that works really, really well to the favor of this team. It's a decent 9-mon draft. I really like it. It's a very physically offensive with Ponyta, Pancham, Grookey, Doduo, Axew, and then you have Catheta, Kabuto, Stunky-ish as your special attackers, but even then, it doesn't feel nearly as strong as your physical offenses. Kabuto wants to be more physical than special. So, but this is a team of, some of these are some of the best Little Cup mons. Let me play with them and show you why they are what they are. It's hard to deal with a team that has a very good fighting type and a very good psychic type. So, not much more I need to say outside of that. Watch out for hazards is going to be my thing. Alright, number 2 is the Ryan and Ditto. And I think this might be my favorite of the favorite draft. The one issue that they have that I can truly see is Rapid Spin being forced on Toadskull. And that's fine. You can be forced to run Rapid Spin on Toadskull, and that's okay. But that's the only way to remove hazards. So that's a thing that becomes a problem. Especially if it goes down early. Abra is one of the best mons in the format. Not much can take its Psychics or any of its moves, because you can run so many different versatile sets between Focus Sash to Life Orb to Specs to heavy duty boots. You can run a whole bunch. And then Blipbug being your 2 points Sticky Webber. It may or may not come, but it's going to scare people either way. You have a decent speed spread here, which works really, really well. Growlithe Hisui hits very, very hard. You cover a lot of the types very well. Yeah, I really enjoy a lot of this. It's a good balance between physical and special attackers, and then you have some defense in here with Shellos and Grimer, and even Snubbull can be defensive. And just looks great on paper. It really does. And I'm really excited to see what they can do with it. I wish there was one more Rapid Spinner or Defogger, and this would probably be the #1 team, in my opinion. It has everything you'd want in this type of draft. Every team's going to be kind of weak to ground, so making Toad School the only thing that really can take ground hit is unfortunate. That and being to fire is not, it's fine, but you have enough answers to it that you shouldn't be truly worried. Okay, and for our top team, it's DJS. This team just looks incredible from my perspective. The only big weakness being you have couple things that are weak to ground, but you have immunities to it and resists to it. Scraggy's a really good fighting type. Sui and Zorua can hit very, very hard. Chinchou is very strong. I love Chinchou. Tinkatink is a very good mon. Watch out for the moves that it cannot know. Snivy can just be... You can Scarf a Snivy, click Leaf Storm, and just win games. It does a whole bunch. The problem with this team is the speed, but I think Castellana hits 18, I believe, with that. So you're missing the 19 speed point here, but that's fine. You're going to force them now to run it at the 19 anyways, so... And you have a bunch of just ways to take hits and keep things going. Little weak to water, but I mean, you have the Chinchou, you have the Snivy. Like, the top 5 looks so incredibly strong for this type of format. Plus, you can fit anything else in, and you can move things in and out. These 9 mons are really, really strong, and you have Rapid Spin Defog. You have some hazards. Momentum might be a little bit lacking, but that's fine. You have 6 knockoff users. Tinkatink can't actually, I don't think it actually gets knockoff anymore, so it's probably 5. But there's a lot this team can do. Physical, special. I think it might be slightly more specially based than physical based, which is fine. It's much harder to deal with special attacks than physical attacks, I think, in this generation. And there's a bunch of mons you don't normally see, like Slowpoke Galar. I have not seen very much in Little Cup, and I'm really excited to see what it can do. Because it's just pure Psychic, which is incredible for this. I thought it was Poison Psychic, but no, it's just Psychic, and that's super helpful, giving you a good fighting resist, a good Psychic resist. There's a lot this team is going to be able to do, and this is by far the best team on paper, in my opinion. So yeah, those are my takes on all of the Little Cup teams. If you need anything else or have any other questions, feel free to let me know, and I will do my best to answer them as I see fit. With that, good luck on your weeks, and have fun.